Good evening. I'm going to call to order this regular board meeting of the Richland 1 School Board of Commissioners. It is Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 at 6:02 p.m. We are at Eau Claire High School, 4800 Monticello Road, and pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, all persons, organizations, and media outlets as requested have been notified of the time, date, place, and agenda of this meeting. Before we adopt the agenda, we do have an invocation by Pastor Darius Graves of the Ridgewood Missionary Baptist Church.
Greetings and good evening. Let us pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy. God, we thank you for allowing all of us to be here on this evening. We thank you for a harmony of minds. We thank you for being able to serve this community, this school, God, these students, parents, staff, God, to the best of our ability. God, we thank you for consciousness. God, we thank you for intelligence of speech and clarity. God, we just thank you for a spirit in this place that will be beneficial to uplift this district and the students that it serves. God, we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Graves. We'll move on to 3.02, the agenda adoption. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Weston, seconded by Commissioner Bishop to adopt the agenda. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. The motion carries with 7 yeas. We'll move on to, well, we're actually going to take something out of order. We've got a student on the way for the School Board Spotlight, so we're going to take on 4.01, Community Engagement Report presented by BWP and Associates, and then after that, we will return to the School Board Spotlight. Dr. Kastner, the floor is yours.
Good evening,
Good evening.
members of the board and the community. We are very pleased to present our community engagement report and also to compliment your school district on probably one of the more robust participations that we've had in a long time. Dr. York, you did a great job. We actually, just the highlight is, we
Excuse me, Chair. Could you ask him to speak up or turn the volume up?
Could you move that microphone, I think, move the microphone closer to you or up?
There we go.
And let's see if that, and maybe get a little closer to it.
Are we better?
Yes.
Is that better? Okay.
Thank you. We have engaged over 5,000 people. And I'm going to go through with the slides. Board members are receiving for the first time this report. This report that you're receiving got a lot of pages to it, probably about 75 pages. There's no way that you're going to be able to digest everything by reading the report tonight. So allow me to do the highlights with slides. This report is public record. It's the type of thing that could be on your website. It reflects the responses that we've heard from engaging over 220 people and surveys over 4,900. As you look at it, it creates a data-driven profile that we're going to talk about. So, just trying to get the clicker here. Can someone give me a hand here? Am I doing something wrong? Go down. Okay. So one of the objectives of the community engagement, and part of, I believe, why you selected BWP, was our ability to create an understanding and support for this superintendent search, to try to have the broadest possible community participation, but also to identify, through what we hear, experiences and qualities and characteristics for your next superintendent. Same time, we want to talk about challenges. Oops. When we talked about the people that we individually interviewed or interviewed in group, there were over 224 in 31 stakeholder meetings and 9 forums, which enabled anyone in your public to attend. We asked them the same 3 questions. What are the strengths of your district? What are the challenges you're facing? And what are the qualities and characteristics you'd like to see in the next superintendent? We received over 4,800 responses in English, 75 participants in Spanish, and significantly, over 1,500 students.
That's great.
And we're going to talk about that in a bit because there are a couple things the students said that were different than the adults said. So the survey results, when you look at this, the survey results are not weighted for internal staff versus the public. So when you look at it, you're talking about people that have children in the schools, live in your attendance areas, are employed in the district, and are parents. Almost like a third, and a third, with 2/3 then being non-school based. And that's important because you're trying to get a reflection of your entire community. You haven't had this type of data because you haven't had a superintendent search for a while. So here you're trying to engage a lot of people in the community, and in so doing, let's see what they talked about regarding your strengths. Now think about it. If you got 5,000 people, and all of a sudden you have 48% that talked about the strength of your educational options and programs, that's 2,500 people. Now, I'm going to just tell you, I'm not a psychometrician. When I did the data for the first 1,000, and then I looked at the data for 5,000, the percentages didn't vary but 1%. So somebody will say, well, we have a large district. Well, when you get in to start taking a snapshot like we've done here, this data would be consistent even if we went to 8,000. So I'm just telling you, for people that might ask that question, I just want to anticipate it. Quality teachers and staff, 41%. Supportive community, 37%. So here we're talking about looking at the most significant strengths, but it isn't that people haven't recognized issues of parental support. They're talking about curriculum. All of these things you can look at when we get into it more when you read the report. What are some of the skills you'd like to see in your next superintendent? What stands out? Now think about that. 2/3, communication skills. The ability to engage internal and external people in your community. Then when you look at what comes next, it's kind of a tie between financial skills and organizational skills. You have a complex district. So we're not talking just instruction. We're talking about all the other nuances in dealing with the management side. When you also look at this, managerial skills, financial skills, organizational skills, that's pretty significant. And in essence, that tilts a little differently than what we might usually see. What we might usually see is talking about instructional skills. Now, we're not denying instruction, But I think as we go through this report, we might expand upon what this might mean. So this is quantitative data. But when we merge it with the qualitative data from what we heard from the people we interviewed, including board members, then you're going to see a balance. What are the characteristics you'd like to see? Integrity, good judgment. Stands out, doesn't it? Commitment to the community. People want someone to come here and stay here and be out in your community and be an integral part. So when you're looking at all this, now, you see, visionary doesn't come at the top, but it also isn't ignored. Now, when you look at that, and then we're talking about what are some of your concerns? So you as a district right now, one of the concerns we heard over and over again was the recruitment and retention of high-quality staff. You've had some challenges with vacancies as you go into a school year. I don't know what the data says on the percentage of staff that's leaving the system, but that's the type of thing that seemed to stand out. It's not unusual that we would find funding, but at the same time, we were told that you have a lot of significant resources. I want to point out one that we didn't see coming, and that's school safety. When we talked to the students, the issue of safety didn't come up. But when we looked at their 1,500 responses, the public responses on safety, not the student responses, had safety at 35%. Students had it at 46%. I don't know what this means, because when we interviewed the students, it wasn't that they seemed to not be comfortable in their school. But I do think the issue of school safety, maybe what you might want to do is go back and talk to some of the students, because it is something that's different from what the general public might say. I didn't hear fights. I didn't hear any of these issues when we had our individual conversation. But on the survey, at least it shows something that I think you might want to look at a little more carefully. But I don't have any more specifics than what I just shared with you. When you look at whether something is important or extremely important, strategic planning, 97%. When you transition into a new superintendent, one of the things that often occurs is the development of a strategic plan, usually stakeholder-driven, not board or the new superintendent-driven. The idea that the strategic plan should be the umbrella for everything in the district, should engage stakeholders, and then get to a point that when you get into the implementation, you're talking about accountability and data. Experience working with diverse groups of people. So this is consistent with your district. You have a district that has diversity. It's a strength, it's a challenge, but whoever is going to be your next leader, their ability to work with diverse groups of people is going to be critical. Experience in instruction. Now here you see 94%. So we're not, and why are we talking about instruction? A lot of it is some of the achievement data. A lot of it is achievement gaps. Not that other districts don't also have this. So you're not unique here. Experience in personnel. Now that relates back to attracting and retaining teachers. Experience in finance. That relates back to some of the issues that you have been dealing with. the state oversight, and experience as a superintendent with a proven track record of success. So any candidate that we would be thinking of bringing to you, we're going to have to share their data on where they have moved the needle, particularly on instruction. And you're going to be wanting that as a board, because again, that will be an issue, that will be a public issue that you'll be wanting to be able to talk about that track record. Now, this is the data from the conversations. So these are the 3 questions which we talked about. We had a few people that wanted to go offline. We went back to the 3 questions. It all worked, though. What are the strengths? The strengths go back to the data that we had when we talked about the survey. Now, here's the difference. If you go to Appendix 1, when you go to Appendix 1, that's a written record of what people said about the strength. What did the board members say? What did the principals say? What did your community say? All of that anecdotal data all of a sudden defines what people mean by the strengths. And there are considerable strengths in your district. The value of your teachers and staff, the fact that you have people that have dedicated their lives to your district, they still live here, they're engaged, and they're your core. It's recognized. A supportive community. You have higher education, you have business partnerships, you have all numbers of the faith-based community, and all of the supportive community that's significant. And the location you're in a capital, with all the stuff that goes with that being in that, how that all fits together, the universities, and then you have excellent resources. Now, there's a lot of things that you should be very proud of. When we talk about the issues, we're coming back to talking about the recruitment and retention of staff, facilities and funding. Facilities are an issue. You have an aging infrastructure. You have a great variety of buildings, some that are in better repair than others. And then you have some excellent facilities. Whatever that gap is, and how that's going to move forward when you get into prioritizing a facility plan, that's going to also have to blend with the equity that you want to have, whether it's suburban, urban, or rural. Now, it isn't something that you don't already know. It is something that as you're going in to the transition into a new superintendent with the board, it is something that is going to be on the agendas. And you're going to need to, in essence, have some sort of a assessment or audit and look at that. Or maybe you already have one and you need to build upon it. Again, I'm not here every day. You are. Academic performance and achievement gaps. If you're going to have a strategic plan and it's going to address that, you're then going to have periodic reports. How you doing? We're not talking about incremental. How do you get to the point where that gap gets smaller and smaller? And that has to be data-driven, and it has to be program-driven. And also sometimes, as you're looking at things like early childhood, you catch kids when they're young. And that type of commitment that this district, I believe, will be making, it's critical, because that's where it has to start. I put school safety again, not because I had a lot of written responses, but because of what came out on the student survey. The reputation of the district. we heard from a number of people that are concerned about the reputation of the district. Is it having any impact on the loss of staff? Is it a type of thing, because you've had certain things have happened, that you kind of get a fresh start when you bring in a new superintendent, when you have the board start with a new direction? The process of unifying the community and working together in partnership should build upon the good things you have, but also it will need to address some of these things. And it's sometimes said that you don't do a good job tooting your own horn. And the horn that's not tooted goes untooted. So you have to sometimes, in a certain way, recognize some of the proud programs that you have that we heard about. So that's just part of the process. When we talk about building a leadership profile, the leadership profile that we're presenting to you, and you will note, if you can, in the handout that you have, there's a one-page leadership profile. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And we're going to be asking the board to look at what we have put down as a draft, and within the next week, reach a consensus so that we then can say that we have a board-approved leadership profile. So the board chair can delegate a process. You don't need to have another board meeting to do it, but you need to have a way where board members can weigh in if they have some recommended wordsmanship or suggestions, and establish a process that when everybody has had the opportunity to respond, you then come up with a revised profile based upon board input. Now, when we organize the leadership profile, we're talking about visionary instructional leadership. We're back to effective communicator. Remember I talked to you about management? Here we are, collaborative management. And then we talk about personal qualities. Again, what's it based upon? One-on-one interviews? Staff? Online survey? 5,127 responses from students in your community, and analyzing patterns and themes. Now, I'm going to go through this quickly, and in the end, I'll be happy to answer any questions to the board. But they're looking for a highly visible, forward-thinking superintendent that will work in a collaborative way, be innovative, and can work in a diverse culture. A leader who is an effective communicator and a strategic leader that fosters accountability among team. A trusted leader, experience in managing resources and knowledge of sound financial procedures. A leader who can create a positive working relationships with the board, the staff, and the community. A leader who will be a visionary leader, strong instructional expertise, forward-thinking, understanding of teaching and learning, preparing students for post-secondary and career readiness, not one more than the other, because we understand the technical programs, the academic programs, they give kids choices, and that's an area that the students and the community feels your educational options are really solid from everything we've heard. As someone that has experience in implementing initiatives that expand opportunities and close achievement gaps, the ability to develop cohesive and effective leadership with the teams at the district and school level. We've mentioned this before. You have a larger district. Someone working in a district that's 5,000 is not going to have the skill sets of a larger district in which the leadership team, the superintendent's cabinet, they're the doers, and that's how that has to happen through delegation, trust people to do their job, verify what they do, and hold them accountable, which is what they're asking. So we talk about a visionary instructional leader. Effective communicator. You aren't looking for a top-down manager. You're looking for a consensus builder, a collaborator. All segments of your diverse community, multiple stakeholders, different perspectives. That's a challenge, but that's the work. You want someone that is politically astute. In this day and age, whether at the state level or the national level, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. How that's going to impact the board, your community, and your students, that has to be figured out, because we are somewhat in a state of transition. We're talking someone that's an active listener, who understands and values transparency, builds trust, and particularly the students say, we'll talk to them, be visible to them. Collaborative manager. This first one, a little bit long, but it does reflect the complexity. Financial planning, accounting, human resources, construction and facility management, addressing aging infrastructure, transportation, safety, technology, and food service. That's a complex job, but it shows, in addition to the academics, how that has to come together. Someone that has expertise in attracting and retaining staff, qualified staff in the hiring process. Qualified staff isn't people you hire in August. Qualified staff are the people you hire in June. And then you hope you aren't going to have the vacancies in August. But that's something that has to be worked on. And in a large district like yours, that you can't take it for granted. Hands-on experience with strategic and long-range planning. You saw that, 97%. Is strategic, innovative, experience in building existing strengths, enhance areas needing improvement, and will make sound, equitable decisions. The word equity came up often, but that's not unusual in a large district. Personal qualities. Can build a positive culture of trust. Trust is earned, not given. It's a type of thing, openness, is a unifying individual intent on building strong working relationships, internal and external. Visibility is very important to the people we talk to about being in the schools and the greater community. Not as a photo op, but with a genuineness. You know, you can walk through the halls and click it off, and I've been there. That's not what people are talking about. When they talk about the word authentic, they're talking about meaningful visits and the idea that people have the answer, can talk, and someone can listen. The word courage comes up. You know, you have a lot of segments of your community, like any community, that have stakeholders that are very much looking out for their best interest. But their best interests need to be balanced with the interest of all your children. Not just those that are the loudest and the longest. And you could get into some situations if you get into redistricting, if you get into prioritizing which schools you're going to get into. All these type of things have to come back to the board and the superintendent talking about how this all fits in with the equity of all students. That's just the nature of districts. And that's the type of thing that you're looking for, because some of these things are going to have to be carefully discussed, and they need in a transparent way to how and why, the why of why you're making the decisions. Now, you all know this, but it comes out that the idea of courage, it's a tough job. Frankly, it's a lot tougher than when I was a superintendent a little bit ways back. There's just more stuff going on. But at the same time, it can be done. So when you look at this report, and you have an opportunity to look at Appendix A, which is all the annotated information. Appendix B is that's the quantitative data. There is an Appendix C that the page didn't get there, but that's where the students are. So we did choose to print out the students, particularly, I haven't had 1,500 students in a long time. So I think their voices need to be heard. And I hope maybe you can find a process to perhaps engage some of these students too. So when you look at the idea of today, we are completing the specifications. That means we have the community engagement report as a product. It leads to the leadership profile. We already have a significant number of applicants from around the country. The deadline is going to be May 1st. Month of May, we're going to have to talk to the board where your schedule is going to be busy. Because we will get a day where we will present candidates a week or so later. We also will do board training when we present candidates and talks about the do's and don'ts of effective interview processes. We also will give you sample questions related to your leadership profile. And we'll talk to you about how do you go about reaching consensus. So if we present 4 to 6 candidates, we'll give you their applications, we'll show you the Google searches, we'll show you their resumes, we'll show you their references. And you as a board need to make a decision whether you choose to interview who we're recommending. The people we will recommend will meet at least 80% of the leadership profile. Also, the people we recommend, we will guarantee, if they aren't successful, doing the search over at cost. I've done over 60 searches. Haven't had that happen yet and don't intend to start here. But the fact is, if for some reason the board wasn't satisfied with who we recommend, then we'll go back to the drawing board, keep working. Haven't had that happen either. And again, I don't see that's going to happen here. During the month of May, not only do you have the first round of interviews, then the board has to determine 3 finalists. And in South Carolina, the 3 finalists' names will be public. And usually there'll be a day in the district. And when they have the day in the district, all the people that participated in this process, and hopefully many more, will have an opportunity to find out a little bit more who your 3 finalists are. And there should be a mechanism where they can weigh in and give you your opinion, well knowing it's the board that makes the decision. The board makes the decision, but the board will do it in a thoughtful way, taking the input from your community and work towards that. The other thing we're telling you, when the board reaches the point where they choose a finalist, we can't have a split vote. We would not recommend someone coming here on a split vote. Bringing a family, and you're just one board election away, and I'm just telling you, you need to work hard at that. It doesn't mean that you're going to all agree in the beginning, but we think consensus is really important and sends the right message to the community. But that isn't necessarily easy, and we can work with you on that. When you get to the point and you reach a finalist, or even the 3 finalists, we also would recommend an intensive background check. We have a group that does that can get into whether they have traffic tickets or bankruptcy or anything that might be out there on social media, just to make sure there are no surprises. So we even go a little bit deeper with the 3 finalists. And you get to the point that probably towards the end of May, probably getting into June possibly, you would be able to announce your next superintendent. And then there's a question when they will board. And that issue is a negotiation. You want July 1, but you also want someone to leave well. You want someone that has a transition as they're going from wherever they are and where they are successful into now coming into your district. And your district does attract a lot of candidates, your location, your size, a whole lot of things that people find very attractive. So that whole thoughtful process, picking the superintendent and then working then to have an entry plan, which will again re-engage the same community that were part of the superintendent process with the board. You're going to have a board retreat. You're going to have to talk about governance, all these type of things. We can advise you, even to the point that we will assist the new superintendent in helping them along the way for the first year if they want our assistance. That's kind of up to them. We do a lot of superintendent coaching, not just people we work with in BWP, but we have experience in that because it's lonely up there. And it's the type of thing you can't necessarily talk in a candid way with staff. You sometimes need an independent presence to just help work through issues. And also talking about how boards and superintendents work together. There's different lanes, and that's the type of thing that you have to work for, and you work at. So when you look at this, the whole idea, we want to have this start July 1 is our goal, but we'd like to get, and when we get into the details of the calendar, we're going to have to work on it to make sure we can have board members understand it'd be real important that 100% of the board members would be attending those meetings. I think that's very important. At this point, this is what we wanted to present tonight. What we're presenting, just hearing it in 20 minutes, isn't going to do justice when you take the time to read the report, to think about it, maybe even talk among yourselves about it. And probably members of the community might want to weigh in. If we didn't get something right, they should speak up, because we want to get it right so that helps in your decision-making process. This concludes my comments, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kastner. Any questions from the board members? And I do want to point out, just so everyone in the public knows, the board is receiving this report at the same time as the public by design. So I just wanted to note that. But any questions for Dr. Kastner while he's here? Commissioner Bishop.
Thank you for your presentation. When I look at next steps in the Richland 1 search process, the board chooses and arranges interviews with candidates in May. The board conducts second interviews, chooses finalists, and conducts negotiation of contract. Is there any space there, first question, that would submit to a practice of boots on the ground in the 3 finalists areas? Meaning, have there ever been in that level in that part of the process, has there ever been a practice of board members going to the communities where the 3 finalists are?
The state says you have to have 3.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a number of searches in South Carolina, and I haven't had more than 3. I know this, though. If you only put 2 out, then the names of the whole pool needs to get released, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. One other thing,
I think you, did you get my question? Let me ask again.
maybe I
I
missed
think.
it.
Let me ask you a question. Ask again. In that space of May, where you have identified the final three candidates, right? The finalists.
No, we will not. The board will.
I'm with you on that. I'm saying we will, we will release the finalists.
Yes.
Just follow me for a second, okay?
Yes.
Doc, what I'm asking is, will there be a practice, or is there a practice of board members going to the area where the three finalists are to just do research, to do groundwork, to know who this person is in their community? Is that a practice of a superintendent search?
I'm not aware of that,
Okay.
but here's something that you might want to consider. We just did the search in Horry County. Call some people from Horry County Board. We did the search in Sumter, we've done it in other areas. So sometimes you might want to talk to some other board members that are going through a similar process and get their thoughts. Because you have a board association, and I think that you might want to reach out and hear about that. For example, in Horry, sometimes when we do community engagement, or not do day in the district, a lot of places do 3 days. So the community, for 3 days, all of a sudden, who do they see or whatever, and how convenient is it to get input? They decided to bring all three in 1 day. Much more efficient. And then the community all had an opportunity, and how they did this virtually or not virtually. That's the type of balance that the board, working with staff, is going to have to talk about pros and cons. If you wanted to, again, Horry for the example, call their board people, ask why that worked, did it work well? They suggested that that worked very well. I've had some other areas, when you do the 3 days, it has some pluses and minuses. But you do have to have the three people in public.
Dr. Kastner, I was just going to add on, is there ever a practice for folks from our board to do any site visits at the campuses or communities of the three finalists?
Years ago, that happened more. We haven't seen it in recent years. And a lot of reasons for that is because the fishbowl that everybody is in and the scrutiny that everybody's in, you can't hide. However, sometimes, and I have recommended this, that perhaps two board members call the board chair of the district where this person might work and have a conversation and report back to the entire board. Now, I use the two advisedly in a sense because you don't want to call a meeting. But sometimes that extra step I've seen taken. When we have the presentation of candidates, after you've had a chance to talk about this, we could go deeper in this conversation. And that'll probably be about the May 7th time. And maybe if you have other thoughts on that before you make your final decisions, we could talk about it.
Chair, thank you for doubling down on the question. Dr. Kastner, thank you for that answer. That is exactly what I was asking. Because, you know, you want to do all that you can in this process because we owe it to our community to make the right choice. So thank you for your answer.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, commissioners? All right, that's it. We'll be in touch. I will be in touch, Dr. Kastner, and thank you very much for the presentation.
Again, I want to reiterate my compliments to the district as a whole for a very significant participation in the community engagement. That's the type of momentum that I think is a very positive part and is going to carry over when you transition into your next leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we're now going to go back up to our 3.03 School Board Spotlight. And tonight, we are pleased to spotlight an Arden Elementary student who has received national recognition for her artistic talent. Arden Principal Dr. Timothy Blackwell will introduce her and tell us about her achievement.
Good evening, Chairman Lomanak, Dr. Witherspoon, and School Board of Commissioners. As principal of Arden Elementary, I have the distinct honor to introduce Anasia Laureano this evening. Anasia Laureano is a fourth grade student who has received numerous accolades for her artwork at the state and national levels. Recently, she was awarded first place in the second, third grade division of the National Association of Conservation Districts 2024 Youth Poster Contest. We are so very proud of Anasia at Arden Elementary. Please help me congratulate Anasia on this remarkable honor. Thank you.
Is her parents with her?
He's asking.
Yeah, I see her up there.
Is her parent here?
All right, thank you very much. And now we will go to the Office of Teaching and Learning. Dr. Witherspoon, comments about our last student spotlight.
Again, congratulations, Lisa. I know Mom is here, and
Oh, yeah.
Mom, if you would just
Wave.
do a wave, and please, let's all give Anisha and the family another round of applause. Thank you.
Mom, I was trying not to draw the spotlight to you, but thank you for being here, all of you. All right, we'll move on to the Office of Teaching and Learning 5.01 Student Achievement Data Presentation, Elementary iReady and STAR, presented by Ms. Sturdivant.
And Dr. Williams will tee up. She will do a little.
And Dr. Williams.
I just wanted to say a couple things. Thank you so much, and good evening, Board of School Commissioners, Chairman Lomanak, and Dr. Witherspoon. Thank you for allowing us to share this data tonight in teaching and learning. We are constantly collecting and reviewing and analyzing our data so that we can make data-informed decisions. Tonight, you'll hear about two data sets we formatively track, our STAR data and our iReady data. Tonight, you'll hear from Ms. Sturdivant, as Executive Director for Early Childhood, Elementary, and Office of Special Services. You'll also hear from Dr. Hassinger as well, because we do this work together as a team. So again, thank you for this opportunity to share, and we'll look forward to any questions. Ms. Sturtevant?
Good afternoon, Dr. Witherspoon, Commissioner Lominack, and Commissioners. All right, as being a visible learning district, we have learning intentions and success criteria. So we are learning this evening about elementary STAR and iReady formative data. Success criteria, how you know you're successful when you're able to explain the purpose of STAR and iReady formative assessments and able to explain how teaching and learning uses formative data to support student achievement and growth. Alignment to the district strategic plan. The implementation of instructional resources and data review aligns to the district strategic plan by these 3 bullets: delivering and implementing options for a tiered system of interventions to provide students specific academic supports, ensuring equitable experiences that support educational excellence for all learners, and ensuring that each learner achieves his or her potential in an academically challenging and diverse environment. The purpose of STAR. So STAR, which also, the acronym, you may hear an acronym, but the name of the company is also called Renaissance. The purpose of that is required by the State Department. It's our universal screener. The main purpose of a screening instrument is to identify students whose performance on a measure warrants further investigation. So for instance, we use STAR for screening for students for our AAP, academically our advanced placement in our district, our gifted placement, and you would score at or above the 75th percentile. So those are the 4 questions we look at. What should be the focus of instruction? How are students performing in relation to the standards? Are students on track to reach proficiency on SE Ready? Where do students need to be, and how do we get them there? And just giving you a deeper understanding of a STAR, and of our screener, what we look for in a screener. Is it reliable? Is it valid? Is it easy to administer, score, and interpret? And are you able to triangulate the data with other sources? So as we use teacher anecdotal notes, we use common assessments, how does that all play and work together? STAR focuses on achievement and growth versus growth. Achievement, we look at percentile rank, point in time, compared to all grade level peers. And percentile rank means a student performed as well as better as 50% of the students on the same grade level. As we look at growth, the acronym SGP, student growth percentile, a point across time, compares grade level academic peers. So when you look at SGP, 50% of students' growth of 50% of his or her grade level academic peers nationwide from one test window to another. So we just finished our winter screening. The purpose of iReady. The State Department requires our special education department to provide a tool to progress monitor our students. So we have to show where the students began and show progress and to show progress. So for example, how the students are making adjustments. So with iReady, we look at grade level deficits. And as you can see, 3 or more grade levels, 2 or more grade levels behind, 1 grade level behind, early on grade level, or mid or above grade level. iReady is personalized, it's web-based, it delivers online for grades K through 8. Also, be aware that the diagnostic assessment provides teachers with the baseline data and present levels of performance to assist teachers in developing instructional appropriate goals. Basically, it helps with them writing the IEPs. That's just a quick summary of what is required. And when you look at the difference between STAR and iReady, STAR progress monitors look at iReady as monitoring progress for our special education students. this is a chart that talks about with iReady stretch growth and typical growth. So when students take that adaptive diagnostic, it will give them two goals. Typical growth, that's the average amount of growth a student makes within a year. A stretch growth is a goal that puts students on the path to proficiency. So for instance, if a student in math hits a stretch goal 2 years in a row, then you can predict that 95% of them will be on grade level and 82% proficient. If a student hits their stretch growth in reading for 2 years, iReady is able to predict 94% of students will be on grade level and 79% proficient. And remember, we're speaking of students with disabilities. So what's the difference? Star reading and math assessments are based on norm reference models, and I gave board members a little cheat sheet that has kind of the breakdown of those definitions. And iReady reading and math blends norm reference with a strong criterion reference growth model. So basically, the key difference between criterion reference and norm reference is that students lies between how the students' progress is measured and compared. Here's our data. As I've noted on the data charts that you have before you, overall, for Richland 1, the percentage of students meeting middle of the year MOI STAR growth goal for reading is 63%. The students meeting the state benchmark score from beginning of the year, which that's taken in September, to middle of the year, we're at 56.4%, so it's a 3% increase. For math, we're at 59.3%, and 54% meeting the state benchmark, and we're up 2.2%. So for our students with disabilities, with STAR, we are at 56% with our STAR growth goal. For state benchmark, we're at 25.2, we're up 3%. For math, for students with disabilities, growth, 51.6%. And for the state benchmark score, 27.8. And when I say state benchmark score, it's the predictability if they'll be proficient on SE Ready. And as you can see, and I'll provide you with an additional slide, I just need you to focus on the percentage of students with disabilities meeting MOI, which is 60% typical, and their stretch goal. 41% of students met their stretch goal, their typical growth, while 22% met their stretch goal. For reading, and then for math, it's 39%. And their stretch goal is 22. And I want to have you pay attention to that 22%. So to think of that as 1 out of 5 students at the middle of the year have been able to grow more than one year. Dr. Hassinger?
You got me. Ms. Sturdivant asked if I would just share a few next steps and kind of some things that we're doing with this data. First of all, she did a great job letting you guys see the 2 models for growth and the 2 models for proficiency. One is comparative of peers, and the other is very individualized and student-centered to support the IEP. Now, we offer STAR Champions cohorts every year. We started a couple of years ago. And the STAR Champions cohort is an opportunity for individuals at each of our schools to commit to over 20 hours of professional learning in advanced analytics utilizing STAR. These individuals attend sessions roughly once every 4 to 6 weeks for several hours with Renaissance Learning directly. That's facilitated through the Office of AARE, coupled with the Office of Secondary Education. The thing we love about the STAR Champions cohorts is that it's not just administrators, it's not just CRTs and APIs, principals, but it's teachers, individuals that in each of our schools want to build their capacity as a data leader in their building. And so over the years, we've been able to build in several locations 3 or 4 individuals' capacity with regards to advanced data analytics and how to access and manipulate the reports. For example, progress monitoring reports, predictive reports, as opposed to just the instructional planning reports, which are common in each classroom. So we're very proud of that. In addition to that, iReady is supported with professional learning by our Office of Special Services Consultants. They meet monthly with the teachers within a school and often provide support and guidance in professional learning related to the specialized curriculum offered by iReady. The second bullet, quarterly data and implementation meetings. We meet with the folks at Renaissance once every quarter to review data from their perspective. They're the experts, and so we like to hear what they have to say about our data very objectively and see if it matches our own interpretations. Those are excellent meetings, and they involve individuals from down in K2 all the way up to those that consult for the high schools. I can also tell you that we have a monthly check-in on top of that. Those are usually very brief, but Renaissance offers the opportunity for us to ask questions, perhaps prepare, edit goals in the system, set new goals based on what we have achieved or haven't achieved. So those are also very helpful, and I'm excited to say that our Office of Special Services let us know just a week ago we are going to follow that model with the folks at Curriculum Associates in iReady as well next year. We're going to be doing quarterly meetings with them to talk about how we can better structure and support our students accessing that specialized curriculum. So I appreciate their vision on that. The next 2 bullets are really about iReady and how we can improve its implementation. There are really 3 phases here. Be more specific and intentional about goal setting for individual students, particularly about actually utilizing the system. One of the things that's so different about iReady is that the data points can change daily based on student work. So you're constantly getting updated data. The iReady data we pulled and provided to you, if I was to pull it again tomorrow, some of those numbers will have changed for those schools. Because students are constantly interacting on a personalized learning path within iReady. Excuse me. What we have heard from the Office of Special Services is that they want to be more intentional and deliberate about setting goals and about monitoring the implementation of that personalized learning path, providing support to teachers as needed in real time. So I think that if we can get that in place, we will see some of the iReady success rates increase. Now, we're very proud of the individuals who have made their goals, particularly those stretch goals. For it to be the middle of the year in late January and a kid is already scoring more than 1 year growth, that is very impressive. But we don't want that number at 22. We want that number at 65. We want to make sure that we're getting as much bang for our buck as we can with this unique system. So again, kudos to the Office of Special Services. And then finally, we have a wonderful opportunity to leverage integrated adaptive technology to work smarter, not harder. When students take the STAR assessment, that end-user data goes immediately into their system and will pre-populate lessons for our K2 students in Lalilo, which is a foundational literacy program. It will populate math and reading lessons in a program called Freckle for students who are in grades 3 through 8. And so students, again here, regular education students, have a personalized learning path. And that's based on their performance on key criteria within the system, foundational literacy skills and stackable skills in mathematics. So a student can take the STAR CAT, which is a computer adaptive test, and immediately have personalized lessons generated online in Lalilo, Freckle, and the teacher can then move those into the classroom environment of Nearpod, if they so desire to do that. So what we wish to do is to continue to leverage that, make things easier for our teachers, give them the opportunity to build in some differentiation, and be able to leverage this in a way that we can see higher student growth through personalized learning, student-centered approaches. Go ahead.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank all three of you very much. Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Devine and then Commissioner Moore.
Thank y'all for the presentation, and thank you, and Dr. Moore probably mentioned this, thank y'all for this right here. We can see this a whole lot better than what we got over the weekend. So, but great presentation. Just a few questions, and I'll ask three, and I got total about 4 or 5, but I'll just ask three. Just real quick, you know, I'm big on the strategic plan, and I'm looking at some of the performance goals of the strategic plan. And, you know, by 2029, we want students in grades 3 through 8 to be scoring in meets on SC Ready through our various tests. My question is, how does this data help us or inform us in regards to getting us on track for our strategic plan to move forward?
As you can see on your first page of your data, how it shows we're in the blue.
Which, this, the big
Yes,
one?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And
All
you
right.
see where we're on target for making growth. So as you make growth, it leads you to proficiency. And,
Can you give me, let's
like
use
at the
AC
bottom
more.
where it has 63%.
Yes, ma'am.
For meeting their STAR reading goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then where you see to the right, we have 56.4 of students meeting the state benchmark. So that gives us a predictability of how many students will pass SE Ready.
All right, very good. Thank
Yes.
you.
Dr. Hessner said that.
And just to add to that, you know, data analytics are much more complicated than one data point. So
Correct.
we actually triangulate the STAR data with things like iReady, with things like the NVPA predictive assessments through Mastery Connect, and then, of course, teacher anecdotal notes and teacher-made tests that are based on standards. So when we look at the predictions, in general, we found STAR over-predicts a little bit, MVPAs under-predict a little bit, and the teachers are right almost every time. So we look at those multiple data points to make decisions. But with STAR, that benchmark prediction is a student meeting certain skills that they believe relate to the state standards at that grade level, and it predicts their ability to pass that assessment. And if they are not at that level, it clearly lists the skills based on the assessment that need to be worked on through a personalized learning plan.
All right.
So for instance, STAR will under-predict maybe 3 percentage points, where another assessment, iReady will predict up, or was it 3, MVPAs will predict up under 3%. So it kind of varies. So you look at the entire picture.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just to add a note to that too, Commissioner Devine.
Yes, ma'am.
We talked about multiple data points that we try to triangulate and make sure we have a good full picture. We also have district CFAs that are letting us know whether or not a child is mastering a specific standard too. Not just all of this formative data that feeds into our summative data. Also on our strategic plan, I know you're aware, we have data points we're trying to hit each year.
Correct.
And what we'd love to see on this, and we're getting closer, we wanted to see us at 65%.
Right.
We're there with growth. What's been really lagging for us, for example, in ELA and reading, what's been lagging for us has been that proficiency level. So that second column tells you about the proficiency level. And we're excited when we see increases in that because we want to see both at 65%. But this gives you a glimpse from STAR and from iReady where we are with our general population, but then also our neediest students with IEPs. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all. Next question. Is it a fair comparison when all students don't take the assessment when we look at this data? Does all students take both assessments, either or?
All students wouldn't take iReady. iReady is with students with disabilities. And also be aware, Office of Special Services has other data forms they have to track students with more profound disabilities. So there may be a different set a platform for them to track the growth of those students, the performance of those students with their IEPs.
Okay. And then I'll ask this third question, and I'll yield, and we got time for more. I'll ask more. In listening to what you all said, and I forgot which slide it was, and the question is, do both of the assessments assess the same standard or same skills?
No, no, sir.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Moore. Thank you, Commissioner Devine.
Yeah, I too will say thank you very much for this larger version. I did want to ask, one of the questions I had was who actually took iReady? That is students with disabilities.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Okay, and do we have a mechanism, or is it built into the system as far as matching student scores from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year? And
Yes.
Does this include every student who's there at the beginning and every student who's at the middle, or those that are there both times, if that makes sense?
It follows them throughout the district.
Okay, okay.
And
So-
remember, iReady is monitoring their IEP goals.
Right. So if a student is at AC Moore at the beginning of the year,
Yes, sir.
and then takes his middle of the year test at Greenview, how do we account
It will
for that?
populate, it will follow, they will populate for Greenview, but it will still be tracking their IEP.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it.
Is that it? All right, thank you, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Wesson.
My question is this: where are they in grade level? I
for-
follow the growth, but where are they in grade level? Did they meet it? They
Yeah, you
start
can do
off and they're not met?
So would you like that answer for the data that we provided you for STAR or for iReady or both?
Both.
Okay, so iReady is not designed to focus on current grade level. iReady has those indicators throughout, but you have to understand that roughly 75 to 80% of all special education students in this district are 3 or more years behind. Okay, so when we talk about proficiency in iReady, what we're talking about is them hitting their stretch growth goals, meaning they gain more than 1 year in 1 year. So we want these young boys and girls to be able to meet 2 years in 1 year or 1 3/4 year. Otherwise, they're always going to be 3 years behind. If we don't hit those stretch growth goals, they're never going to get to the point of proficiency. With regards to STAR, the 2 columns for our special education students, and your first 2 pages, essentially, the 2 columns that refer to state benchmark, that is the predicted proficiency on grade level for those students. So for example, where's the first page? For example, the very first school that's listed there, this is your second column under reading. The predicted proficiency on the state test for that school is 66.4%.
I understand the growth and seeing the growth.
Well,
but
that's
I'm-
not growth, that's proficiency.
That's proficiency.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that, is there something for us to follow to show, I see the yellow and the blue and the green, for something to show us how the proficiency is by year instead of just the growth?
So those columns have nothing to do with growth.
Okay,
Okay, so your first column is the percentage of students that met their growth goals.
right.
The second column are the percentage of students who are projected proficient for their grade level. Then under math, it follows the same pattern. So where you see greens, that means that that school increased the level of proficiency among their students from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. Where you see yellow, it actually slipped downward.
Okay. That helps tremendously to figure out those things.
Commissioner Wesson. Commissioner Wesson.
Yes.
Would you yield for a minute?
Sure.
Can I ask one follow-up
Please
question? Just so we're not going all over the place. Does STAR have ratings like SC Ready? In other words, meeting, exceeding, not meeting, and
Yes.
approaching?
Yes.
Okay. So that middle column that's meeting state BM score is one of the 5 different levels that
Yes.
show where they are in relation to
Yes,
this
sir.
benchmark?
And meets or exceeds.
Okay, all right. Thank
Sorry,
you,
see,
Commissioner Wesson.
Thank you.
And if I could just mention something, Chairman Lominack, with Dr. Witherspoon's permission, getting at what Commissioner Weston is asking. One of the things that we do, we look at this data and all the multiple data sets almost on a daily basis. One of the things we've talked about that might be helpful for you all to get at what I think she's asking is we almost want to prepare for y'all a data notebook that we can add to on a quarterly basis that would allow you to see some of that growth in real time like we see it. It's kind of hard sometimes to look at this data just in a single glance and really understand the progression that occurs all year long. So we thought it might be helpful for us to share kind of how we do it and have a notebook for each of you that we'll update quarterly with all of those data sets so that you can kind of, I know it's a little bit overwhelming, but at the same time, I think it would be interesting for you to see that progression, and I think that's part of what you were getting at.
It is.
That'd be great. I'll
Yes.
take overwhelming.
I'll take overwhelming too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hersey.
Yes, just a few questions I wanted to ask. So this, just from my understanding, I want to understand because I may be merging two programs together. When STAR measures urgent intervention, at risk, on watch, and all of those areas. So what you're telling me here when I look at this is, just pick a school. If I pick Bradley Elementary, 52.8% of their students are
Making growth. Have met their growth goal.
So they're on watch or above?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
No, I'm sorry, no, that means they met their growth, they've made growth from their goal. What you pay attention about SE Ready would be the next column over. You would have 50% of those that would pass SE Ready.
So how was the growth goal set? Maybe I missed that part.
Yeah, go ahead, answer.
So growth goals are set based on national norms. This is a norm reference test. So if a child is in third grade, the growth goal is set for the average third grader throughout the nation.
Okay, so the
And
growth
so that-
goal, but I want to make sure I'm following you. So that means the growth goal for every elementary student is the same based on what we're looking at now?
The minimum growth goal, yes. It's plus 35 SGP from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year, and then another plus 35 SGP from the middle to the end of the year. They have to hit their growth goal twice in order to have been successful.
So where would we, my question is, what do we do elementary-wise to, the students that are not shown here would be the ones that did not meet their growth goals, which would be, on STAR, would be labeled as at risk?
No, ma'am.
That would be
So there's three components to STAR, and this will be a great work session. But there are three components to STAR. The growth goal has nothing to do with the child's level. So there is something called a district benchmark, and what STAR does is it assesses a child of a certain age, and it puts them in those four categories you remember from when you were here. The red, the yellow, the blue, and the green, which are not the colors we're using, by the way. We're using these independently. That relates to where a student is at based on their grade level. But we didn't provide that to you because that's four different data points. We were really trying to simplify it into proficiency. So when you look at the state benchmark numbers, those students aren't colored or called urgent intervention or intervention. Though that information is good for instructional planning and use in the classroom, what we provided you is what STAR believes the proficiency rate will be at that school based on the STAR data currently.
And the urgent intervention group that you were talking about would be working in LILO and helping with the freckle lessons. That would be the supportive measures that they would receive. Does that help?
So those percentages that are listed are those that are hitting their growth target or are hitting their proficiency marks for meets and exceeds at this time. If there's a percentage that's not showing up there, what's going on with those other children? And I think that's part of what you're asking. Those are children that may need to be in Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention, supporting them so that their growth will increase or their proficiency would increase. There'll be interventions the classroom teacher will be doing in the classroom there are also interventions that can be done outside the classroom.
So, Dr. Williams, so that means if I subtract 65 from 100, that would give me the percent that's not meeting the growth.
That's
goal.
correct. That's right. But those students, and we say this all the time, those percentages represent individual children. And it's really important that we know where every individual child is. Because when we talk in percentages, it's really easy to forget, well, this child is at 30, this child is at 40. What are we doing differently for those children to make sure we get them where they are to take them as far as we can for those 180 days? So when we meet with teachers and school teams, let's name the children. And where are they? So we get very specific with it because we want to make sure we're allowing that child their individual trajectory path to be successful. And, you know, we talk about percentages. We've got work to do until every sheet we show you has 100% on it. And again, I know that's a high goal, but it's the truth, right? Because if you've got 99%, what's going on with that 1% of our children that aren't being successful? So, but we try to always keep in mind we're talking about individual children.
And we still do STAR 3 times per year?
Yes,
fall,
ma'am.
winter, spring, okay. And then the only reason I'm asking, my mind went to STAR is because as principal, we had to present the data differently than how it's presented here. You know, we had to always break it down and look at those students on individual levels and watching how they moved each test cycle to know that they were, you know, making that progress. I mean, we could look at it overall, but understanding how many kids you had at urgent intervention, on watch, and all of that was very important.
And that's why we were suggesting doing the data notebook, because we were doing a broad picture, and if we could give you something that was more succinct, that would make it more, I guess, user-friendly for you to be able to understand. But we just gave a broad stroke for you today. But if you would like something more in-depth, let us know.
Well, no, I'm just saying we want to break it down so that we really thoroughly understand.
I got
Because
you.
on the school level,
Oh, and we
You're
do.
in-
We still
yeah,
do
the-
that.
We still do that.
right, but I'm saying for us, so that we
I got you.
understand what, the same thing that the principals are doing or seeing is what we kind of need to see. So I think it helps us to be on
Definite.
a lower level, because this is just high-level growth, but we're really not delving down into what is actually going on with the students on the school level.
Right.
And then also, can you touch base quickly on some of the interventions that are in place so that we all know what those interventions are and how often those interventions are done? And then for those schools that have CRTs, what's their role in all of the data stuff and how the CRTs work in the schools to make sure that that data is being sent down to the teachers with the students?
So you would like a
Sure.
report for me to give you all of the students who
No,
are?
I'm just saying
Oh,
overview,
no,
just
I'm sorry,
quickly.
overall.
Y'all can just
well,
say now.
Oh,
you
I'm
know.
sorry. Well, we do the adaptive work that you saw with STAR, with the freckle lessons, as well as their different mechanisms they use for interventions. We have interventions meetings for the reading intervention and the math intervention, what we call academic interventions, but at the school level, they divide them up. The CRTs are supposed to do student-led coaching, and often the CRTs, reading coaches aren't necessarily able to do all of that, but they are also pulling groups and supporting students. So it varies, but as we were sharing, it would be helpful for us to have it kind of mapped out so you could see how it looks, because it can vary based on the needs of the school as well.
And as you shared, Commissioner Hersey, and you well know, intervention takes a lot of different forms. Intervention can be a teacher pulling a small group.
Right.
Intervention can be a teacher working with an individual child. If that's not working and we're not seeing growth and change in proficiency, then we may step outside the classroom with those intervention assessments Sturdivant said. If that's, at that point, we're also beginning the MTSS process and we're looking at what other supports does this child need to help him or her be successful. So all of that is in support of making sure we're doing everything we possibly can to help that child be successful. The CRTs are critical in meeting with us monthly to make sure we're training them so they have the tools they need to support their teachers. And of course, our reading coach tends to keep their eyes closely on our reading data. The CRT will also have close eyes on math data, and they'll both work very closely together with their leadership to make sure everybody has their eyes on their school data as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Hersey. Back to you, Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two quick questions, and I'll end up. How much flexibility do teachers have when it comes to the use of resources that we have listed? Those, I forgot the Fractal and the other lessons and Nearpod and all of that. Because with the increase of inclusion, how do we make sure that teachers aren't overwhelmed and students aren't over-tested?
So what we do, we have a check-in system with resources A, resources B, which we allow for schools and teachers to use from. We also have a prescribed list of different items that you can use, but for instance, Lalilo was a choice with schools if you wanted to use that program for our K-1 students. So it was a little different to differentiate. So it wouldn't just, everyone has to use STAR and Progress Monitor. We found another mechanism for those students that were struggling with foundational literacy skills, and it's adaptive, and as well as they have to track the data to see growth and improvement. So that Lalilo is for use for what you would say the intense urgent intervention students.
Gotcha. Okay. And then lastly, I think we answered the question about the IEP, so thank you for that one. But let me just say, I think this is a good work session, Mr. Chairman. I know in years past, the previous Chief of Teaching and Learning presented to us, walked us through a model classroom, what this looks like, did the testing and everything. We used to be in the Hall of Fame room, Dr. Witherspoon, when we did it some years ago. And we had those booklets that you talked about. I probably got some I gave back to our assistant some years ago. So we need to keep that up. So I do look forward to having this as a more in-depth work session, I think, for the board meeting, because this is just the business of the board, that we take care of this for right now, and then we go more in-depth at a future workshop. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. Commissioner Moore.
Really not a question, but a couple of observations. I appreciate, Dr. Williams, what you said about we need to look to help everybody. We had a superintendent here one time that said, who of us would fly on an airline that said they were going to get 75% of us where we're going? And so we need to keep that in mind. I would love to hear, when we have work sessions, I'd like to hear some things about what's happening to address the range from one school to another. Because, you know, just as an example, in the reading, we're going from 48% at one school to 73% at another. Right. And we need to look at equity along those lines. I'm hoping that you can also give us some tips on how we can help to increase those cohorts where the people are trained and the teachers get some training.
Yes, sir.
And then again, teachers got to have time to be able to do all this. And we talk about that all the time. We really need to look at staffing and scheduling and trying to get some of that done. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Wesson.
For the parents who are listening out there, if you'll take me through a step just to show that my child is not on grade level growth, and so at the end of the year, may be held back, or if not held back, move forward where he is, what else is there for him, possibly after school, summer, just one normal kid that's not making it?
Obviously for third grade, we have something offered. For K2, we offer, K2, we offer CRP. Well, all the grade levels, I would say with CRP, after that, some schools differentiate and offer before school tutorial, and as well as our district has been awarded, we won't be able to necessarily pull out this year, but our state awarded us the Palmetto Math Project, where we can do tutoring. We can decide how we want to use it at several of our schools that have been designated. They've been low performing in math. So it could be additional tutors and support during the school day, or it could be before school or after school. It depends on how the school would like to be creative with supporting families.
I know that we have something over the summer. If my child is not succeeding well and did not meet his growth goals.
Yes, ma'am.
What do I do with him the summer? I have a first grader and a third grader.
The third grader will be at summer reading, has been invited to, so I've already sent those invitations, they've been invited to summer reading camp. There are other, we can work with our strategic partnerships of other programs will be offering extra tutorial work for first grade. I can get with Dr. Cooper to see what else is available. I don't want to speak off the cuff of what's available, but for third grade, definitely we have that offer for families.
So is there anything available for my first grader?
No, ma'am, not this year.
Okay. Has it been in the past?
It has.
And what's changed?
The focus with students passing third grade with the retention and the numbers similar to the presentation I did previously. We have a high number of students that we have to meet the state criteria of passing Read to Succeed camp.
Okay. So as a parent, something will be provided for my third grader and possibly this summer, but
But they should be receiving, they would be, they've been
Services
offered
during
after, they've been offered after school
so
this
after
school year.
school, before school?
Yes, ma'am.
Or pull out?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Wesson. Thank all of y'all. This was a good, really good first session. I
Okay.
don't, I've said that we're going to delve a little bit more into some other student achievement data. Commissioner Clyburn.
Well, I mean, did you want to finish or?
No, go ahead.
Oh, that's your closing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for their presentation. I had a question about, I think it was Dr. Hassinger that spoke about the consultants that you all use for, the various grade levels. And you mentioned that, hopefully they would be along the lines of the interpretation of, you all's interpretation of the data, that it would be in line. I wasn't clear if that was a thing.
When you said consultants, we often refer to some of our members who are curriculum experts within our department. But quite frankly, nobody can read our data like us. But it is nice to have these statistical experts come in and confirm what we're seeing. And when we meet with them quarterly, there may be things we missed that they've noticed. For example, we disaggregate by subgroup. We can give you the data from STAR, for example, the comment by Dr. Hersey where, the urgent intervention, on watch, and proficient. We can give you that data for every single subgroup, male, female, black, white, Hispanic, non-multilingual, multilingual. And so sometimes they can catch something or notice something that we don't notice. We don't pay them for that service. That's just something that we meet with them because we buy their product. They owe us that. So we meet with them quarterly to have those conversations.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much. And I just
We have a commitment to that. We have a commitment to database decision-making in this district, and so we go above and beyond to make sure that we're talking with the individuals who have created these programs to ensure that we're interpreting them to the fullest extent we can to help students.
Thank you so much.
Just a quick, are the school profiles still available?
Yes.
Are they online? 'Cause
They are. To clarify, they're in the AERE folders. So we would need to work with Dr. Minor to get you those.
I'm sorry. That could be included in your notebook that we provide you. We can make copies of all of those for you as well. I do want to, before you close, Chairman, I did want to just say one little note based on Dr. Moore's, Commissioner Moore's comment. Keep in mind, when we do have that work session, we can talk about the multiple layers of support that we have for those schools that may have a designation. We're in those schools, meeting with those leadership teams every month, and quite often talking with them in between those monthly meetings. And it's teaching and learning staff and any other staff member at the district that has an impact on their data. And then, of course, our transformation work is really targeting that level of school that may not have a designation, but we're concerned about because we're seeing those kind of gaps. That's exactly why we have that work going on.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Clyburn, did you
I
have?
just had one more.
I thought so.
Yes. So, of course, we've all heard the saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. So, here's my question, or just an observation, and of course, I would love validation from any of you. But in order to, see a difference in these outcomes, improvement in movement, progress in these outcomes, our early learning, initiatives that we all know there's a need for, that we need to, make some moves on. The public and our community wants that. I think the answer is obvious, but just would like to hear your observation, on how that can.
That's such a
help
great
us.
question. Thank you, Commissioner. First of all, I was kind of saddened. I don't know if y'all saw the recent article. I haven't had a chance really to delve into it, but it was speaking to how much 4K in our state is not being accessed by children, and there are a lot of variables that go into that. That's very concerning. In our district, I'll say a couple of things. We fully realize that we've got to critically continue to address early childhood and appreciate the support we have in this district for early childhood. We can do measures that are short-term that can help us, and we can do measures that are long-term, impacting that data. Some of our efforts currently are short-term, some are long-term, but truly long-term is prevention, right? And prevention says, let's get to these children before these gaps really enfold them and keep them from moving forward. So early childhood speaks to that preventive step rather than us always intervening, right? So how can we prevent the gaps from ever forming? The other thing I will say to you when we think about early childhood is making sure that we're meeting as many of the needs as we have in our community, meeting the needs that our children share, and making sure that we have a plan to meet the needs of as many as we can. One of the things we will be sharing with Dr. Witherspoon, we started the process, Ms. Sturdivant, Dr. Hassinger, myself, and Dr. Wiley, and any of her staff that would like to be involved. We're meeting to draft a 3K, 4K. We'll start there. 3K, 4K expansion plan. What does that look like? How can we expand it? Where are those opportunities for expansion? Is there a classroom there? Can we have a 3K classroom there? Looking at all opportunities, exhausting all opportunities. Because again, when we talk about all means all, those children that are not accessing it are our children. They haven't come to our district yet, but they're our children. And so how are we doing everything we possibly can to meet their needs so they don't have those gaps? So we'll be sharing that with Dr. Witherspoon, looking at how we can possibly expand any and all efforts to meet more of the needs of our 3K, 4K children as they enter our kindergarten classrooms.
Thank you.
Commissioner Devine.
Thank you. One last follow-up question. This will most likely go to Dr. Witherspoon. Just being the board and being visionary, and we used to do this, particularly K through 2, we used to service those young people during summer school. Is there an opportunity this summer to serve them? And if not, what changed? Because what I heard from staff was we're only serving, I think, students going to the 3rd grade or 2nd to 3rd grade. And whereas we used to serve those students, because my children personally were a part of those opportunities. And so I think we need to make that a priority. I like to make that a priority, particularly early childhood. So we look through K through 2. How do we, I don't know if timing, I don't know if it's funding, what do we need to do at this point to maybe move forward? And we can talk offline or you can, go back and think about it. But I think at this point, we need to offer K through 2 because we've done it in the past, and we've seen the results of those students who did attend those summer sessions. So my question is, how can we serve students this summer, 2025, K through 2, and what does that look like, if possible? And if not, what are some of those challenges that the board can help you with to move forward for this year?
Let me say, and as the team has referenced, they're looking at some things, again, short-term, long-term. If you will, let me send you all something on Friday. Okay. In that regard, as we staff that particular ask, and I will say part of the priority this year was with the change, knowing we needed to serve more third grade. So that being said, again, let me give you an opportunity to.
Is that the Read to Succeed piece?
Yes.
Can you send us a little blurb on that as well? Also include that in Friday's update as to the reason, rationale, why. Make that, just part of your conversation back to us, your written report.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Weston.
Knowing that it's so important, and we know that the kindergarten classes are growing, and are we preparing for that growth for first grade teachers so that they're not overwhelmed with too many students for them to have in their classes and still work with them and give them the attention that they need? Because I'm afraid that if we don't build that in to have more first grade classes, then we'll lose some of the dynamics that we're working on to build.
We do that, Commissioner Weston, when they do staffing and HR looks at projections and so forth. If there's a bubble, so to speak, in a particular cohort at a school or across the district, and if that bubble in kindergarten moves to first grade, then we work with the school and saying, okay, if I had 4 kindergarten teachers in kindergarten based on the numbers, it stands to reason you're going to need at least 4 in first grade, so forth and so on. But then you've got to look at, again, from projections and standpoint, where you might have had, and something happened that, okay, well, we've always had 4 in second grade. I'm just giving an example, and maybe that needs to be 3, or what have you. So that's that 4th teacher, and so forth. But that's the process, different than this, but that's the process as HR sits down with every individual school and looks at projections and numbers and the like. So those adjustments are built into the process.
Okay. And I'm going back to what Commissioner Devine talked about, and I was asking about the summer program, in the fact that if we're not exactly working with them, then how can we help them? And also not have our teachers in first grade overwhelmed when they are making some progress, and that may set everything back. So just please look into that and keep us informed.
Commissioner Hersey.
Real quick, since we brought up summer school, back in December, January, and you all did a presentation on summer school, well, somewhat of a summer school data presentation. We still wanted to see the actual scores for those students to see what progress they made over the summer. I did reach out to the State Department because I thought that we could not access it from this location, but then I was told by the State Department that it is something that our district can extract for us. And so I'm making the request again, I guess it would be to Dr. Kara Miner's office. We simply want to see the extraction from Power School of the data for those students that attended summer school last summer, where they were prior to, and what their post-assessment was, and whether or not they were promoted. That's what we were asking for. And so the State Department sent me right back to the district because I know that we have access to that data in-house. So could someone please make a note to have that extracted?
Thank you, Commissioner Hersey. All right, I'm calling it. But I wanted to say this was a really good first session on student achievement data, and I had mentioned, I think, previously that we're going to delve a little bit into these, and I don't mean for these to become lengthy work sessions. However, what tonight showed was, one, I think at least 3 members, if not 7 of us, learned about the difference in summer school priorities. And that's important for us to know because we may want to make sure that we're providing what the district needs to get back to the other grades that we're not able to provide for right now. So I think that's just getting that from tonight was really important because one of the things I'd written down early on before we stumbled on that fact was this is important to help us match our needs with the priorities, because ultimately when we're doing the budget, we've got to prioritize. And I think this helps put all of that into context. So I really appreciate that. I love the idea of a data notebook. And I know that in that notebook will be, and I didn't expect it tonight, but in that more in-depth notebook, we can see some of the demographic information, because I know that this board is going to want to talk at a work session about achievement gaps, what we're going to do to address those. So thank you all very much, and thanks to all the commissioners for the really good questions. With that, we will move to 5.02, Visual and Performing Arts presentation by Mr. Graham.
Good evening, Chairman Lomanak, Board of Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon, Cabinet Administrators, and guests. I'm Walter Graham, the Coordinator of Visual and Performing Arts, and thank you for the opportunity for me to share some information about the Visual and Performing Arts Department. In Richland 1, in the elementary schools, we offer music and visual arts for pre-K through 5, orchestra for 5th grades, and dance and theater for K through 5 at 2 of our schools, Satchel Ford and Brennan, which are grant funded. And in the middle schools, we offer a little more offerings, 7 different areas: band, chorus, dance, general music, orchestra, theater, and visual arts. And in the high schools, the offerings gets more. We have advanced opportunities, which include concert band, marching band, jazz band, chorus, dance, guitar, music appreciation, orchestra, piano, world music, steel drums, theater, visual arts, including ceramics, drawings, painting, photography. We have AP courses in 2D design, 3D design, studio art drawing, music theory, and IB courses in music, dance, theater, and visual art. Richland 1 has an excellent history of supporting the arts education. We have the music instrument purchase and repair programs which benefit over 1,300 students in the orchestra and band programs from grades 5 through 12. We also coordinate all the district-wide art events for our students. We have district honor events for chorus, band, orchestra, and jazz band. We have a district concert performance assessment for band, and we also have one for chorus that we started this year. And we have our district theater festival in the middle school and for middle school and high school, district honor dance festival and showcase. We have our visual arts exhibits and awards for elementary and secondary. And we have a collaboration with the Anti-Carrion Foundation, which is our master class with a legendary artist. And this year was P.J. Morton. And we provide elementary art field trips for our grades 1 through 5. We're proud to offer all these art experiences for our elementary schools that you can see. Our first grade students get to go to, they attended the musical Frog and Toad at C.A. Johnson High School. This production was produced by the Columbia Children's Theater. And in second grade, the kids attended, it's called the Carnival of the Animals / The Gift. That's a collaboration with the NIA Company and the South Carolina Philharmonic, with the story of the gift and the music by Camille Saint-Saëns from the Carnival of the Animals. And the second grade students also had the opportunity to show their artwork of the different animals, and we displayed that in the lobby of C.A. Johnson, and the second grade students were able to tour all the artworks from the second grade students. And in third grade, the kids had the opportunity to see the Columbia Classical Ballet production of The Nutcracker at the Koger Center. And our fourth grade students attended the South Carolina Philharmonic Youth People's Concert called Link Up at the Koger Center. And the students had the opportunity to play the recorder and sing with the orchestra during this field trip. This trip introduces the students to the instruments of the orchestra, and this year the focus was on jazz and swing music. Now, this is our second year of a new field trip for fifth grade students. They attended at the Koger Center called Beats to the Rhyme Youth Songwriting Field Trip. The students had a chance to see how a track is laid for hip hop, and they also selected some students to be able to showcase their rapping skills on the stage at the Koger Center. And this collaboration was with the Love, Peace, and Hip Hop Foundation with Fat Rat Dazar was the rapper. Now I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about awards and honors that the students have presented from Richland 1. In the fall, the Dreher High School Marching Band, under the direction of Dr. Christopher Lee, placed first place in the South Carolina Band Directors Association 3A Lower State Championship, and they won second place overall in the whole state for the 3A State Championship. And we've had some different schools. This year, the South Carolina Music Education Association Concert Performance Assessment, which is going on right now. We had AC Flora Chorus, the Columbia High School Chorus, and Dreher High School Chorus went to the Concert Performance Assessment, and they scored of excellent. This year, for the first time in South Carolina, they have a dance performance assessment, and AC Flora Dance Company went, and they scored a superior. The South Carolina Music Education Orchestra and Band Concert Performance Assessment actually started yesterday, and AC Flora went, and they scored an excellent, and Dreher performed like an hour ago, and I'm not sure what they did yet. And the rest of the schools are going at the end of this week, so this week and next week. In the South Carolina American Choral Directors Association Choir, we've had 5 kids selected from Bradley Elementary School and 17 high school kids selected from AC Flora, Columbia, and Lower Richland. That's the most we've had for the ACDA choir. For the South Carolina Music Educators Association All-State Chorus, we had 14 high school students, which is the most we've had in the district, from AC Flora, Dreher, and Lower Richland. In the SCBDA Band Association All-State, we've had 1 middle school kid from Hand Middle School and 6 high school students from AC Flora, Columbia, and Dreher attend. And this year, from the South Carolina SCMEA All-State Guitar Ensemble, we have 13 high school students from Dreher make that All-State. And we had 2 freshmen from Dreher make the South Carolina Band Directors Association All-State Jazz Band. And then this year, from the All-State Orchestra, we have 4 middle school students from Hand Middle and 5 high school students from AC Flora, Dreher, and Columbia High School. One of our students was very special, a 9th grader at Columbia High School. He scored first chair on string bass in the state for All-State Orchestra and All-State Band. At this moment, I would like to introduce his director, Dr. Constance G. She's the orchestra director at St. Andrews Middle School and Columbia High School.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. I'm so happy to be here to be able to sing the praises of my very talented student, Xavion Boyd Gray. His is a success story of the first order, and it's easy to sing his praises. Now in 9th grade, Xavion came to me as a 6th grader with no prior experience playing any instrument or reading music and very little exposure to classical music. While it was evident that he was very bright and musical, his talent wasn't altogether obvious at the onset. He first started on the viola and did well enough, but his progress wasn't particularly remarkable at that point. But about halfway through the year, he decided to play the string bass, and I gave him permission. He seemed very interested. He took to the instrument immediately, and everything seemed to change for him at once. He had a very natural fit with the bass and clearly loved it. He began coming to practice every day before school, had endless questions about how to play this or that, and soon had the rest of the class coming to play together with him each morning before school. Once we were able to get a bass home for him to practice, I think he must have done little else because he progressed at lightning speed. In 7th grade, he won spots in the region and all-state orchestras and continued this winning streak every year since. This year, he was principal bass in both the region and all-state orchestras and just performed with the all-state band as well. In addition to these accomplishments, he also won a full scholarship to the Canon Music Camp at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina, for the past 2 summers and plans to return again this year. And finally, his most prestigious award yet is his acceptance into the National Youth Orchestra program called NYO2. This is an all-expenses-paid program for students from across the nation. They'll study in New York for 3 weeks, perform at Carnegie Hall, and go on tour in Scotland as part of the prestigious Edinburgh Festival. Xavion's future in music is very bright, and I will look forward to watching his career unfold in the years to come. I will always be grateful to have played a part in supporting him at the beginning of his musical life. But none of this would have been possible without the support of you, our school board. Thank you so much for believing in the power of the arts to transform lives and for providing the resources for our students. While Xavion's success is spectacular, I could talk to you for hours about many of my other students as well, who also love music and whose lives were changed forever because of this opportunity. Your support truly makes a difference. Thank you again. Please welcome Xavion Boyd Gray.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. I'm Xavion Boyd Gray, and when I first started off on the double bass, I knew this is what I wanted to do as a high school student, college student, and as an adult. I knew I was different from other students at my school when I didn't really play video games or sports. I love playing the double bass because of the feeling I get while playing it and all the experiences I've had since I began. I cannot imagine what I'll be doing with my life if I didn't play the double bass. I especially loved my first year at All-State Orchestra because it was the first time I played with the full orchestra, with wind players, and the pieces selected was amazing. I really enjoyed myself because it was music every day for that weekend. The concert was great, and I loved the conductor we had. Also, one other meaningful experience that I've had as a musician was at Candy Music Camp in North Carolina. What made this experience beautiful and unforgettable was I was around teenagers and young adults just like me that love music and want to pursue it as a career. That experience really helped me and shaped me as a young musician, and I want to be a professional musician because I love everything that involves classical music. Thanks to Dr. G, all these experiences were possible.
So we have talented kids everywhere.
Yes, we do.
All right, some more honors. In the South Carolina International Thespian Society Competition and Festival International held at Coastal Carolina, 38 of our students in theater scored superiors from AC Flora and Dreer, and all those students will qualify to compete in the national competition in the summer in the International Thespian Festival at the Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And this past summer at the International Thespian Festival, 3 of our students scored superior ratings at Indiana University, AC Flora and Dreer. In visual arts, in the South Carolina State Fair winners from K through 12, we had 29 students win awards from elementary schools, from Rosewood, Logan, Meadowfield, AC Moore, Hyatt Park, and Middle, Hand, and Creighton, and high school, AC Flora and Dreer. And then the Lake City in the Artsfields Junior Art Competition Regional Award went to Peyton Mooney from Dreer. And Peyton will also have, Peyton's work will be displayed in Lake City from April 25th to May 3rd at the Artsfield. And along with our students, we also have teachers who are working very hard. My lead teacher for elementary art, Ryan McClendon from Hyatt Park, was awarded Best in Show for the South Carolina State Fair. And from Dreer, Mary Catherine Raines, she was awarded the 2024 Student Art Education Award for High School Division for the State Fair. Our schools are doing a lot. 5 schools were awarded the 2024-25 Arts and Education Distinguished Arts Program Grant, also known as the DAP. We have AC Moore, Logan, Rosewood, Satchel Ford, and Han with received money, all receiving up to together over $62,000. And we have some ABC schools, that's arts in basic curriculum schools. That's for 3 years, and each school will receive $37,500. That's AC Moore, Logan, Rosewood, Satchel Ford, Hand, and Lower Richland, which is a total of $225,000. So, saying all that, we have some more events coming up that you can all come to. We have our secondary visual arts exhibit and award ceremony at the Koger Center, which is going on now. Monday, we'll have our awards. That's Monday at the Koger Center at 6 o'clock p.m. on the second floor. Our district dance showcase will be at AC Floor next Thursday at 6 in the auditorium. Our district honor jazz concert at Emily Douglas Park across from Hand Middle School will be the following Friday, April 11th at 4 o'clock p.m. And maybe Dr. Witherspoon may come play with us. In the case of rain, the event will be held in Hand Middle School auditorium. And the last thing for the year is we'll have the elementary visual arts exhibit and award ceremony at the Koger Center on Thursday, April 24th at 6 o'clock p.m. Do you have any questions?
Outstanding.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Graham?
Outstanding, Mr. Grant.
I don't have any questions. Oh, I just want to know, did he bring his bass with him?
No, he did not.
He's gone.
Well, he's gone. Well, I just wanted to just say that we're very proud. As a former violin student that didn't practice very much, and piano student that didn't practice very much, I still enjoy arts, and I just look forward to witnessing him playing one day.
All right.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you,
Commissioner Hersey.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Graham, for your work. And it's evident that, like the young man stated, Xavier stated, if he didn't have music, he didn't know where he would be. And so we know that arts and any extracurricular activities help keep students out of trouble. And so something I'd like for us to talk about just later is tracking the data to show those kids that are involved in the arts have less discipline referrals than those that are not. And that is something we can probably highlight with parents to encourage them to continue supporting and help us as a board to continue supporting the arts. So congratulations.
Thank you. Great. That's a great idea. Thank you.
And I would like to say that I have had the absolute privilege of watching Mr. Graham work with students and teachers in this district, and we are incredibly lucky to have him in this district. So thank you, Mr. Graham, for all that you have done, all that you're doing, and all that you will do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Devine.
Mr. Graham, don't leave just yet. Come on back to the mic. Can y'all pull the PowerPoint back up? I want to go back to that next to last PowerPoint that had something about the exhibits. I got a quick question about that one.
You talking about the
secondary
or elementary?
Is that the one where or is it district dance showcase? Years ago, we used to do a district-wide opportunity for all of our young people in all the arts to come together and present what they do.
Yes, it'd be the old Coliseum.
Yes.
The district festival.
The district festival. What is it, Karen? The Arts Festival.
Yes.
And it's been several years since we've done one.
Many, yes.
Many years. And Dr. Witherspoon, of course, at some point, I'd like for us to revisit that, where all of our students came together in one large venue and presented all of their works at one time. And so that was a great opportunity for all of our students, as Dr. Hersey just mentioned about the importance of arts and just getting young people to come to us. So at some point, I'd like for us to take that opportunity to present that to our community, to really show the good works with arts and visual learning in our district. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Graham.
Thank you.
We will now move on to 6.01, public participation. We have 3 folks signed up tonight. This is just a reminder that you will have 3 minutes. There'll be a clock on the screen to your right, counting down your time. Please finish by the end of the 3 minutes. And as a reminder, this is not a time to criticize a staff member or student, but feel free to raise any educational related concerns that you want brought to our attention, and you will not receive a response tonight, but you will receive something from the district at a later date. And our first speaker is Ms. McClinton.
Good evening, Dr. Witherspoon, Dr. Lomanak, and the rest of the School Board of Commissioners. My name is Mrs. McClinton, and I'm coming to you tonight with a concern at Eau Claire High School. It was brought to my attention that there are several bathrooms, specifically girls' bathrooms, that does not have stall doors with locks on them. And that is a grave security issue, safety issue for me, because I have 2 daughters that go here. So I'd just like to bring it to your attention in hopes that maybe you guys can get with the principal here and get that situation rectified. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McClinton. Our second public speaker is from Save Our Kids. Sorry. Oh, did he leave?
Okay, move to the next.
What's he saying back there? I just see hand signals.
Said no.
Okay. All right. Then our third speaker is John Black.
Good evening. 2 weeks ago, I stood before this board to ask legitimate questions that directly concerned the well-being of our students and the integrity of Richland One. As a parent and a taxpayer, I believe I not only have the right, but the responsibility to seek answers. At that meeting, the board chairman clearly stated that responses would be provided in writing, and I understand that. However, despite that promise, I have yet to receive any written response to my inquiries. While I sincerely hope that the response I received after the meeting was not the type of response I or anyone should expect, I feel it's important to bring attention to the matter that occurred immediately following that meeting. As I made my way to the parking lot, I was accosted by a sitting board commissioner who took issue with the questions I raised. I was informed that I should watch my words and stop defaming the commissioner. When I asked how I defamed anyone by simply asking legitimate questions, I was given no explanation. Instead, I was told they already have a pending lawsuit against the district and I needed to stop. I knew they were referring to their own lawsuit against the district. Let me be very clear. These vague threats and intimidation tactics will not work on me. I'm not easily bullied or silenced, especially when it comes to matters that directly affect our students and community. Parents and taxpayers have the right to ask questions, seek clarity, and demand transparency. That right does not end when inconvenient questions are asked. I urge the board to remember that you serve the people of this district, parents, students, and taxpayers alike. We entrust you with important responsibilities, and it is your duty to be open, transparent, and respectful in your responses. While I understand that difficult questions can sometimes be uncomfortable, they are necessary to ensure that our district is operating with the utmost integrity and accountability. As a parent and taxpayer, I will continue to advocate for transparency and hold this board to the highest standard. I will not be deterred by intimidation or threats. I will keep asking questions until I receive the answers that our community deserves, even if that means bringing legal action myself, which is currently under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. And now we'll go on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. I'll read those out, and then if any board member would like me to pull any of the items, please let me know. 7.01, the minutes from the regular board meeting on March 11th, 2025. 7.02, contract extension, electronic data management system maintenance and support. And 7.03, February 2025 financial report. Does anyone want any of those pulled from the consent agenda?
No, Mr. Chairman. Can we move for approval?
All right, so we've got a motion to approve the consent agenda. We've got a motion by Commissioner Devine, a second by Commissioner Bishop. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All right, the motion carries with 6 yeas and 1 no. So we will move to the Office of Finance. We have 8.01, approval of bond resolution presented by Ms. Matthews Hazel.
Mr. Chairman, Board, excuse me, Dr. Witherspoon, the administration is requesting approval of the bond resolution to issue and sell general obligation bonds not to exceed $17 million. The bonds will be fully paid for by March 1st, 2026. There will be no increase to the Richland 1 taxpayers for next year. The bond proceeds will be used to fund such things as IT upgrades, energy savings improvements, equipment, construction, and other capital items. $2 million of these bond proceeds will finance the final year of a 3-year energy saving project. This item was presented to all 3 board committees in detail last week. The administration recommends approval.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval, Chair.
Second.
We've got a motion to approve by Commissioner Bishop, a second by Commissioner Devine. Any questions or discussion? Commissioner Devine.
Thank you. We had this in our committee. Just wanted to put this on the record. Typically, what interest rates are we getting for the bonds now?
We'll ask the financial advisor, Mr. Gallagher, to come. He tracks those interest rates for us. He's here tonight. It's our financial advisor that works with the bond. He's coming down.
Based on the last numbers run we had, we could expect rates in the 3.5 range. We've experienced some volatility where things have been up and down a little bit, but it's safe to say somewhere between 3.4 to 3.75.
All right, and then, again, same question I asked in committee. This is for 1 year, is that correct?
That is correct.
So next year this time, or April, May, or spring of next year, we should pay these bonds off, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And I think one last question that I asked during committee, the rating by the rating company, can you tell us what that is or what we think that may be, our rating from Moody's or S&P?
We'd have a rating from Moody's Investor Service. We would have the state intercept rating, which would give us a AA1 on the bonds, and then there would be the rating of the district, which I believe is AA3.
Very good. Those are my questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. Any other questions? All right, I'll call for the vote. All right, the motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to 8.02, contract, provide crossing guard services, presented by Ms. Hodges.
Good evening, Board Chair, School
Good
Board,
evening.
and Dr. Witherspoon. The administration requests approval by the Board of School Commissioners to award a contract to Park Incorporated, doing business as Cross Safe, out of Charlotte, North Carolina, to provide crossing guard services at designated elementary and middle school posts. The 5-year contract cost is $3,753,313.20. This is a multi-term contract that will kick off this fiscal year and will not exceed the fiscal year 29-2030. We did do a competitive best bid value process, and the incumbent, who Park Incorporated is, was the highest ranked, responsive, and responsible offer, most advantageous to the district. The administration so recommends.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Devine to approve, seconded by Commissioner Moore. Any questions? Commissioner Hersey.
2 questions. Who provided the services previously? What was the name of that company?
It was the same company,
Same one?
ma'am.
Okay, so have we done any follow-up on evaluations for those companies, for that particular company?
For the current company now, Parking?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I
So
mean,
as far as all our coverage-wise, if they have somebody call out, they're covered as crossing guard facility. But at the first beginning of the school year, that's when we did the emergency contract to get them in. So at the first beginning, there was some vacancies, but now we have all our vacancies, 30 vacancies filled.
So is oversight the district's responsibility or someone with that company?
So it's going to be the oversight of it is their supervisor, but we work with them as far as making sure all the spots are filled.
No, I'm saying like just checking in, making sure people are where they're supposed to be at certain times.
So their supervisor does it, but we do it also as a district.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Bishop, did I see?
Thank you, Chair.
Yep.
Great question. That was some of my same line of questions, but my other question is, these are crossing guards and streets can be very dangerous. Whose insurance does the crossing guards operate under in case of some dangerous incident happening?
So it'll be under the companies.
The companies?
Yes, sir.
And is their insurance identified on this proposal? Or just something you need to follow up with us on?
I can follow up on it, but I'm thinking it's right around $1 million.
I'm not talking about the amount of coverage, just the agency, but that's a great answer as well. So any information on their insurance coverage would be good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
If I could add
Any other questions? Commissioner Clyburn. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We haven't actually signed the contract yet, and that would be a document that we collect at the time. We're presenting
Yes.
this now to go ahead and extend the contract to them.
Thank you for that follow-up. Thank you.
Commissioner Clyburn.
Okay. And thank you so much. The question I had is just about I'm assuming a needs assessment is done prior to identifying the streets and the intersections where a crossing guard is needed, to determine a crossing guard is needed there?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, okay, so I guess I just want to ask, I mean, do we have crossing guards where we need them? Are we lacking any points where a crossing guard is needed, or does this satisfy our need?
This satisfies our need. We actually cut off 2 of them that no kids was crossing. So what we actually usually do as our manager in the district reached out to all the principals and say, hey, have you seen any influx of kids, or if any sites that we've seen that is not kids crossing, just give us a layout of how many walkers you have, car riders, things in that measure.
Okay, thank you. That sounds great.
Thank you, Commissioner Clyburn. Any other questions?
No.
Commissioner Devine?
No questions, but just from a historical perspective, I do want to remind the board, I think last year, the City of Columbia no longer wanted to participate in this service, and so they suggested or worked with this current company.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct? And then so now we're just moving forward with this company after we did a competitive bid for multi-year so that we can ensure that we have the safety for our young people. And if we look back on last year's MOU that we presented, all of those things are there, the hourly rate, the insurance, all of that is there as well. The number of proposed hours, middle schools, elementary schools, supervisor, assistant supervisor, all that is there. Again, this is just a follow-up from the contract where the City of Columbia decided that wasn't for them, and now we have to move forward to ensure that all of our students are protected.
Yes,
Just
sir.
some historical perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. Any other questions? All right, I'll call for the vote. All right, the motion carries unanimously, and we'll move on to 8.03, contract furniture and furniture consulting services presented by Ms. Hodges.
Good evening again. The administration requests approval by the Board of School Commissioners to issue purchase orders to the vendor listed below for furniture and furniture consulting services in the approximate amount of $1 million. The vendors that were selected were awarded under the South Carolina State Fiscal Accountability Authority solicitation and under an exemption here with Richland 1 for statewide term contracts. Those were the firms we have selected. The actual amounts will be contingent upon the furniture needs for Horrell Hill Elementary, Hopkins Elementary, Gadsden Elementary, and Pine Grove Elementary throughout the remaining 25 school year. Funds will be distributed among the 3 selected vendors, and we anticipate the project being complete by July the 31st, 2025. The administration so recommends.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hodges. You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Devine, seconded by, who was that? Commissioner Clyburn? Commissioner Clyburn. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. That motion carries unanimously, so we will move on to the Office of Teaching and Learning 9.01, 2025-2026 textbook recommendations presented by Dr. Fields.
Good evening, Chairman Lomanak, Board of School Commissioners, and Dr. Witherspoon. I'm here to request your approval of the adoption of the instructional resources and materials for 2025-2026 school year to include textbooks, adoptions for content areas and grade levels provided in your packets. The administration so recommends.
Thank you, Dr. Fields. You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Devine that was seconded by Commissioner Bishop. Any questions or discussion? Commissioner Hersey.
Yeah. Dr. Fields, I noticed for elementary it says iReady 2025. I'm just asking because I know SPED normally does iReady. Are we going to be allowed to use that textbook for the general ed population as well?
We will. It's on the adoption list. It was one of the books that the teachers could vet, the committees could vet, and it is on the state approval listing.
Okay, I was just
And
curious.
it was chosen
Okay.
by the committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Hersey. Any other questions? Commissioner Moore.
So that's a new series for K through 5. This
Yes.
is something new this year? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Commissioner Moore. And I'll call for the vote. The motion carries with a unanimous vote, and we will now move into our executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Chair, I move that we not go into executive session.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Bishop that was seconded by Commissioner Devine to go into executive session. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. The motion carries unanimously. So we will go into executive session. We have 5 agenda items that we will discuss. 11.01, HR personnel updates. 11.02, contract renewals and non-renewals for the 25-26 school year. 11.03, employee suspension without pay. 11.04, hiring of personnel. And 11.05, principal and assistant principal assignments. We'll go into executive session now. All right, we're back in session, and I'd ask if we have a motion to exit executive session.
I move that we exit executive session.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Hersey that was seconded by Commissioner Weston to exit executive session. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All right, the vote's unanimous. The motion carries. We are out of executive session, and we'll now turn to Office of Human Resources, 12.01, HR personnel updates presented by Dr. Kumas.
Good evening, Board. Chair, Mr. Lominack, members of the Board of School Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon. HR updates were provided in executive session as information. If you have any questions, I will answer them at this time.
Does anybody have any questions of Dr. Kumas? All right, thank you, Dr. Kumas. We'll move on to 12.02, contract renewals and non-renewals for the 25-26 school year.
Thank you, sir. The administration recommends approval of the contract renewals for the 25-26 school year for all certified contracted administrators, teachers, and instructional support staff, except for the notations on the attached list. Certified employees listed as exceptions will not receive contracts for the 25-26 school year. The administration so recommends.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Devine that's seconded by Commissioner Clyburn to approve the recommendation of the administration. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. That motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to 12.03, employee suspension without pay.
Yes, sir. Pursuant to Section 5925-450 of the South Carolina Code of Laws, amended in 1976, the administration recommends that CM employment be suspended without pay for 3 days. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Devine. It was seconded by Commissioner Bishop to adopt the recommendation of the administration. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. The motion carries with 6 yeas and 1 no. We'll now move on to 12.04, hiring of personnel.
Yes, sir. The administration recommends hiring all 3 teachers on the attached list for the 24-25 and the 25-26 school year. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Devine that was seconded by Commissioner Moore to adopt the recommendation of the administration. Any questions or discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All right, that motion carries unanimously With 7 yeas, we'll move on to 12.05, principal and assistant principal assignments. This was an information item only. Are there any questions of the administration? All right, thank you all. We will move on now to the Office of Superintendent. 13.01, Superintendent's Report, presented by Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. On Thursday, March 27th, we look forward to recognizing 240 elementary, middle, and high school students representing all of our schools at our third annual R1 Rising Stars Awards ceremony. The program will be held at the Columbia Metropolitan Convention Center. Students selected by their schools as R1 Rising Stars have demonstrated extraordinary improvement in one or more areas such as academics, attendance, and behavior. Congratulations to our 2025 R1 Rising Stars. Dance Box 2025, our annual dance showcase, will be held Thursday, April 3rd at 6 p.m. at AC Flora High School. Admission is free. 200 Richland 1 dance students, including dancers from middle school and high school dance programs across the district, will perform during the showcase. Students will perform a variety of dance styles from many different genres of music. Please make plans to attend to support these talented students. As we approach the end of the 2024-2025 school year, parents are planning what their children will do this summer. Our Summer SOAR 2025 camps, programs, and academic sessions will kick off Monday, June 2nd, and run through Thursday, July 17th, under the theme Soaring to Success. Summer SOAR programs will be available at elementary, middle, and high school locations throughout the district. Our Summer SOAR initiatives are designed to address summer learning loss, often referred to as the summer slide. These programs provide structured activities that not only enhance the students' academic skills, but also cater to their interests. Summer SOAR brochures, which include details about registration, will be sent home with students. The brochure will also be posted at richland1.org/soar. For more information, you may call our Summer SOAR hotline at 803-400-1692. Richland 1 high school students who are looking for paid summer jobs and internships do not have to look far. They can find those opportunities within the district. The 2025 R1 Teen Jobs Internship Program will run from June 9th through July 31st, with the possibility of some positions extending into the 2025-2026 school year. Starting pay is $12 per hour. Departments with positions available include Facilities Management Services, Nutrition Services, Advanced Academic Programs, Thrive Richland, Transportation Services, and the Office of Extended Day Programs and Strategic Partnerships. Richland 1 students who are at least 16 years old are eligible to apply. Students must also have their own transportation. Students can go to richland1.org/CTE to apply. The application deadline is April 11th. And Mr. Chair, members of the board, just a couple of reminder events. Saturday, March 29th, is our virtual Early Learners Conference at 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And our Spring Career Fair is 10 a.m. to noon at W.J. Keenan, also on Saturday, March 29th. And details about both events are on our website, again, at richland1.org. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Does anyone have questions of Dr. Witherspoon? Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Witherspoon, why is the Early Learners Conference virtual this year?
Dr. Williams, do you have someone on your team that can address that?
I'm not sure, Ms. Sturdivant, if Dr. Wiley is here. Is Dr. Wiley here this evening?
If not,
She's coming.
Just
okay.
She's going.
I can.
So Friday's update, that's fine.
I could steal her thunder, but I know she has some really good information she would
Okay.
like to share.
Good evening, Commissioner Lomanak, Board of Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon. The reason that we have decided to do virtual this year was just considering our budget constraints. And that can be seen as well, that's one of the main reasons. But the other reason is we wanted to turn it into a positive because it's given us an opportunity to make a farther reach out into the state. At this point, we have 11 different counties that are registered to participate in the conference this year. So it's going even further out and providing support to early childhood centers within the state of South Carolina. So we are extending our reach.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. Any other questions of Dr. Witherspoon? All right, we will move on. Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. We'll move on to 14.01, Board Report. Do any commissioners have board reports? Commissioner Hersey?
I want to just recognize Weber Elementary School. I participated in a mentoring program that was sponsored, organized by Ms. Etta Harrison. She's one of the consistent tutors at Weber, and so she had a girls group that I participated with her last week. I also want to congratulate Brianna Samuels, who's a student at Eau Claire High School. She received a college scholarship this weekend from Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, which I am a member of, and it was a pleasure meeting her and actually seeing all the things that she's done in the community. Want to congratulate the LR robotics coaches as well as any of those coaches who do sports for the school. They spend an inordinate amount of time helping students, and sometimes I think that we forget about how much time those coaches for clubs often put in with our students. I've also attended several track meets across Richland County, actually all the way out in Camden for track meetings. So those coaches put in really long hours with those students on the weekends. Also, the C.A. Johnson Gospel Concert was a huge success. The attendance was well, and I think the community, actually, persons from Augusta, Aiken, Florence, so it did reach a wide variety of individuals who participated in the gospel concert. So those were a few things that I've done over the past 2 weeks.
Thank you, Commissioner Hersey. Commissioner Moore?
I just wanted to mention two things. One was Dancing with the Teachers at Dreer, which was a great event. It was a lot of fun. We found out lots of our students are highly talented, and some of our staff members are maybe a little less talented in dancing than our students, but it was a fun event. The other thing I wanted to mention was the Richland One Male Conference, Scoring Success Through Collaboration, that was held on March the 15th. Any of our employees that didn't take the opportunity to go and be a part of that, you missed out on a really great conference. It went really well. There were a lot of good people there, and male or female, it would have been worth your while to be there. So when we have that again next year, I hope we'll have an even bigger turnout for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Clyburn?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, this past couple of weeks, it was a bit mixed bag. We had the passing of an individual who was very important to the community. Her name is Cynthia Watson. She worked among other things, she worked to get a lot of good people elected to political office in this county and around the state. And she was also, Commissioner Bishop, a graduate of W.J. Keenan High School.
William Joseph.
That's right. So I went to her funeral. Her viewing was on Thursday, went to the funeral on Friday. Really good friends with her daughter, Mackenzie Watson, so I just want to definitely keep her and her family in prayer. And on Saturday, went to the Battle of the Bands at W.J. Keenan High School. They hoped to have a little bit more participation, but some bands pulled out. But we did have a good time. And of course, W.J. Keenan showed up loud and proud, and they did a great job. Both of the bands did a great job. So kudos to the kids for their talent. And then on Sunday was the 72nd anniversary for Reed Chapel, AME Church. within the Greenview community and also for V.V. Reed School. It was the 72nd anniversary for both of those institutions. And I'm mentioning them, of course, because, of course, I went to V.V. Reed. And a lot of the students that matriculate through that program end up in the Richland One system. So definitely want to see that program continue to thrive. And thank you, Chair. That concludes my board report.
Thank you, Commissioner Clyburn. Any other board reports? Just briefly, before I turn to Commissioner Devine, I just want to echo what Commissioner Moore said about dancing with teachers at Dreer. It's unbelievable what Ms. Lee puts together year after year after year. And I want to thank Karen York and Dana Weaver for all the work that y'all did getting 5,200-something respondents on the surveys, the focus groups, the forums, and everything else that you did with BWP. I really appreciate the going above and beyond and all the extra work that goes into that. And then I want to thank the custodial staff and the other folks at Eau Claire for getting this space ready for us tonight. I know that's in addition to your normal duties. And last but not least, I left out the last time I thanked folks at a school. What I also need to remember is the district's IT folks and other folks at the district have to set this up every time we travel. And I don't know how they do it, and it works every time. But I really appreciate y'all doing it so that we can get out to school. So thank y'all for getting us set up here tonight. And then I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Mr. Lomanak. Just before I give our Women's History Month trivia, I do want to just say a few words. Want to say that thank you, Dr. Moore, about last Saturday. The male conference had a chance to be a panelist on that as well. So thank you for attending, and Dr. Witherspoon was the keynote, I think, and others who were there. And thank that team for putting it together, Mr. Barger and some other folks.
Mr. Bell.
And Mr. Bell. Yeah. Putting it together. I thought it was a great conference. As Dr. Moore said, male or female, whoever came would have enjoyed. Also had the opportunity to attend COSBA, our national affiliate of State School Boards Association, at our national conference we had last week, and we talked about several topics, same things that we talk about here locally, and some of those topics included education challenges for Native American students, addressing student mobility, staff recruitment and retention, expanding educational opportunities, cross-district collaborations, the role of student activities in athletics, and CTE, career and technology education, and work-based learning. And so we wanted to bring some information back. Everything's on digital now, so we can share that with the board. I'll get something to Dana. You can pass to everybody else as well. Thank for also attending that. Also have an opportunity to serve on the UBA board, which is United Board Alliance, where we represent, I think I'm the only person from South Carolina represent different boards across the United States, and so we have opportunity. Richland One serves on a national board as well, so thank you all for allowing me to do that. And then lastly, our trivia question for today. Keeping in line with performing arts, we know that there are a number of exceptional students here in Richland One that have come through here, graduated, and moved on. We know students who excel in academics, athletics, and again, the performing arts. It is my pleasure this afternoon or this evening to ask a question. Can anyone name two distinguished alumni who have blazed pathways on the silver screen and the small screen, one even breaking ceilings in the music industry as a performer, instrumentalist, producer, and music writer? Of these alumni, which have been nominated for either an Emmy Award or a Grammy Award? Any thoughts?
Angie Stone is one.
Angie Stone is correct, and nominated for how many Grammys?
I think it's three.
At least one, maybe three.
Three.
Yeah. Somebody
Right.
said that.
Product of A.C. Floor and C.A. Johnson. And then who's my second person that has won? She's been nominated for both a Grammy and a Golden Globe.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, that's an A.C. Floor graduate, right?
What's her name?
She was on Sex and the City.
Okay, what's her name? Kristen Davis, thank you. Kristen Davis, nominated for both a Grammy and a Golden Globe, graduate of AC Flora High School. So that's my women's history trivia for this month. So thank you all so much for letting me do this. I've gotten a couple of people that have suggested some other folk. I do have one. She still is on national TV. I'm gonna give it away. She used to do the weather on NBC, and she's a graduate of Eau Claire High School.
Janet Huff.
Janice Huff.
Janice Huff.
Janice Huff. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very good. Well, thank you, board, and thank you for participating to everybody else. And thank y'all. Thank you, Mr. Lomanet.
You're an extension.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. At this point, I will announce that the next regular board meeting of the Richland 1 Board of School Commissioners will be held on Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Stevenson Administration Building, 1616 Richland Street. And with that announcement and without objection, we stand adjourned.